Good morning, everybody. Welcome into 104.3 The Fans Coffee Break. We've got DMac, Rachel VL, James Marilette hanging out with you. But first, to start off the show, we do want to pass along our condolences and thoughts and prayers to everybody in the University of Virginia community as they had a tragic shooting last night occur. So we would like to pass along our thoughts and condolences from everyone here at The Fan. Gentlemen, how are you both doing today? DMac?
I'm doing well. I'm just trying to make sure I don't screw up here. I got to press the right buttons. Hopefully that works. Got my do you like this look?
The beanie. It's a new one for you.
You like it?
Yeah.
So this is for the Imperial Challenge, where you start at the Breck Rec Center, you bike up 8 miles or so to the piece of 8, and you take you hike up the entire mountain and then you ski down. That's the Imperial Challenge held in April, and I've done that 3 times. That is me just bragging about how awesome I am. I
was going to say, you're more outdoorsy than I am. James, how are you this morning?
My moment.
I am, I'm doing okay. I mean, I hate to call anybody out, but my name is misspelled right above me. So how good can I be doing?
Is it really? Oh my God, that's funny. Marriott.
I get it all the time. Don't feel too bad. It happens all the time.
Marriott,
oh my
Marriott.
gosh, that's so funny.
There we go. No, you know what? I was kidding about that, but I am in the grumpy mood. I'm tired of this Broncos team. I'm tired of the nonsense. I'm tired of status quo. I'm tired of hearing from the state-sponsored spin doctors, well, what good could a coaching change do in the middle of the season? I don't know.
Is that what they're saying? Seriously, is that what they're saying right now?
They're saying it now. They said it when I called for Vic Fangio's head.
Wow.
I got called a bunch of names for that. I'm getting called gas bag and all this stuff again now. Fine. Well, it worked pretty well for the Colts. They looked better yesterday. The Panthers have been way better under Steve Wilkes. I don't know. The University of Wisconsin did it. CU's been slightly better since they did it. So just sit and do nothing and hope it magically gets better.
You know what's funny about this state-sponsored media? They never, ever call for significant change, or they never make direct criticism until things change. Yes. And then when things change, it's always for the better. And they always defend the changes. So they never advocate for any change, but yet every change that happens is good.
And it's been this way for a long time. Like, I remember when Jack Del Rio was here as the defensive coordinator. And it's not just the officially state-sponsored guys. A lot of the minions, or as you call them, muggles, fall into this group too. Oh, Jack Del Rio and his videos about lions and sharks, and it was so great. And then as soon as he gets canned, then it turns into mocking the videos from Jack Del Rio. It's like, come on now. We just see this over and over and over and over again. So
listen, I'm glad that I've been at least consistent about something, and I took a lot of slings and arrows for it. I said it was an F when George Payton took Patrick Surtain over Justin Fields, because not who Fields and not who Surtain was or possibly could be, but the positional value, the relative value of corner over quarterback is massive. And it doesn't matter if Patrick Surtain is the greatest cornerback in the world. If you don't have a quarterback, you got nothing. And the real result of what's going on now is you didn't get a quarterback when you could have, and it looks like Justin Fields is actually going to be a great quarterback in the NFL. Mac Jones has already taken his team to the playoffs and wins. So you've already lost that debate. But then it's because you made that mistake of what you've had to do next, which is, as we're seeing, wildly overvalue Russell Wilson. And we all thought, hey, that feels great at the time. But it wasn't our job to break down where Russell Wilson was in his career. Nobody really thought that the Broncos would do it because the value is so preposterous. For what they gave up for Russell Wilson, you needed a top 5 quarterback. You needed instant impact. You needed to win games right away. And to say, oh, well, it's all Hackett. Well, who hired Hackett? I mean, who's made all of these decisions? How George Payton is getting a free run from anybody right now is beyond me. He is a mediocre GM at best who made a horrendous draft decision in his first overall pick.
Well, he's not getting a free pass from me, DMac. And one of my columns at denverfan.com is about that. It drops on social media in about 25 minutes. And it was, hey, George Payton is the number one guy to blame for all this mess. He's made 2 moves that he gets a lot of credit for, right? That makes everybody think he's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. Pat Surtain, well, first of all, it was a top 10 pick. You better be able to get it right with the top 10 pick. Second of all, he passed on Micah Parsons, a better defensive player, and he passed on Justin Fields. And you were on this. I was on this too, of saying, hey, that could turn out to be taking Bradley Chubb instead of Josh Allen. And that's been thrown up in my face for, a year. How's it look now? I mean, give it some time.
Terrible.
And that move not only led to not having a quarterback, but you gave away 2 1s, 2 2s, all the money you tied up into Russell Wilson. That's a disastrous move. It's a disastrous move. And then the second big thing he did was trade for Russell Wilson. Well, that's looking worse and worse with each passing day. The list of things this guy has done wrong. First and foremost, you interviewed 10 people, and Nathaniel Hackett was the winner?
Okay. Oh, hey, James. Okay. And they didn't even interview Brian Dable.
Or Mike McDaniel.
Yeah, that's true. So, no, it's a total disaster. He's tied himself.
Okay, hold on. I need to cut both of you off. Neither one of you can sit here and tell me that when we heard Russell Wilson was coming to the Broncos, that you thought it was a bad thing. I know for a fact, because I had both of you sitting in these exact same spots as you were both excited about the opportunity for Russell Wilson.
I didn't think it was a bad thing.
Neither did I.
We also, this is a symptom of 2022, where no matter the evidence that comes at you, you just have to get more entrenched and insist you're right. It's like, well, no, that was in March. This is November. It's been 8 months. And now, as we've seen what's happened on the field, as we've seen how he's paired with Hackett, as we've seen all the rest of this evidence come together, I mean, I think you'd have to be a fool to just keep saying, no, it was a great move. It was a great move. Like,
I'm not saying that re-signing
Rachel, just to be clear, I liked it, but it was contingent. And that's what I did say at the time. It is contingent on Russell Wilson being a great quarterback because of what they gave up for him. And I did fight this battle because I was told Russell Wilson was a khaki pants quarterback. And I had to relentlessly point out, no, he wasn't. They gave up 2 first-round picks for him, 2 second rounds. He is in a other world. So I was all for it. But I did say at the time, the value you put on him is more than you would put on Fields or Josh Allen. It's much more, actually. So you should expect more. And I said at the time, and I stick by this, Peyton needs to be tied to this decision. And I said it was high risk, high reward. So was I excited for it? Sure, because you like to be optimistic and you hope for the best. But I said at the time, he's tied into it one way or the other. And it is incredibly risky.
And look, I'm not saying even when
Goonies was a great movie when it came out, and I've changed my mind.
Wait, what movie?
Goonies.
Oh, I've never seen it. I'm not a movie gal, though. We all know this already. Everyone in the comments roast me for it. And I'm not saying the contract, that's a whole nother discussion. But I'm saying when it was in February, everyone was excited. People said, oh, I would rather have Russell Wilson over Aaron Rodgers. Those conversations were happening. So I just don't think that it's fair to sit back and be like, oh, yeah, with what we know now, that was a horrible pick, George Payton. You shouldn't have a job, whatever, because everybody was on that train.
Okay, just so if everybody agrees with it, he just gets a free pass for it?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. Should he lose his job? Should he lose his job because of that one decision? No, because of multitudes of decisions after that. Yes, that's open for conversation. But the slandering of him being like, it was stupid to go after Russell Wilson. Why would you go after Russell Wilson? No one could have thought that this would happen.
And that's not completely a closed book either, right? Like, I think Russell Wilson's the least of their problems on offense. I do. Has he been great? No. Has he been good? No. But I do think he's the least of their problems. I mean, he's out there yesterday, and he'll throw a ball, and the only receivers in the vicinity are Kendall Hinton and Tyree Cleveland. I mean, find me worse weapons. I'm watching the game last night, and I get to listen to Chris Collinsworth carry on and on and on about how Justin Herbert, who was supposed to be the next Dan Marino, can only put up 16 points because he doesn't have any weapons around him. Can we have the same excuse across the board? I mean, Russell Wilson had no time yesterday, had nobody to throw to. The game plan was terrible. As soon as Jerry Jeudy got hurt, it should have been under center. We're running the ball. That's how we're going to play. And instead, it's, hey, let's continue to do this with a bunch of guys that, quite frankly, would be practice squad players on other teams. I mean, Tyree Cleveland and Kendall Hinton. What are we doing here? So could it turn out that the Russell Wilson move is fine? Sure, but it would have been a heck of a lot better to just draft Justin Fields because you'd have all the other stuff and wouldn't have had to make that move. So listen, I'm hoping Russell Wilson turns around and the next 5, 6, 7 years aren't a disaster.
Oh,
but it doesn't look good now.
It's not going to be that long. It'll be whatever we have to suffer through next year, and they'll move on from Russell Wilson after that. They won't have a choice. So
that's a lot of money to give a guy for 2 seasons.
I know. It sucks. And
he won't even have played down on his new contract that had all that guaranteed money. Move on from him.
And listen, I was wrong about that. I was like, oh no, I'm glad they gave it to him, and that was a mistake. And I thought that was contingent on the trade, and it wasn't. George Paton just did that, and he shouldn't have. He should have waited some time. But Mark Rodgers, Russell Wilson's agent, pushed that deal through when he could see Mark Rodgers deserves a gold star. Mark Rodgers, Russell Wilson's agent, realized this doesn't look good in training camp, which it didn't, which a lot of us, including me, turned somewhat of a blind eye to. But then again, we realize now the way they handled training camp and the preseason was ridiculous, terrible. And it doesn't matter how healthy you're going to be in December when you're, the worst scoring team in NFL history.
Okay, so let's move on to realistic possibilities of changes that can be made for this Broncos team. Because, we can go back to the future, wish this would have happened. But what's a realistic one that could possibly happen? And, it comes down to a coaching change. And why not make a midseason coaching change? Both you and James DMac have agreed that, we're watching Jeff Saturday go out there and beat the Raiders 25-20. We saw the same thing with the Panthers and the Falcons, 25-15. So why not do it? George Paton can see it's working well for other teams in the NFL. So why not just pull the plug? Also, I do want to just preface this. There is a press conference already with Nathaniel Hackett for later this afternoon, which makes us very much assume that no changes will be made today.
Oh, certainly not. And by the way, that avatar is me at the top of the Imperial Challenge of Breckenridge. I just want to just full circle it. No, there won't be any changes this week, and I didn't anticipate that. The rubber will meet the road on Sunday. The firing bowl, whatever you want to call it. But what was pointed out to me that's accurate is Mark Davis with the Raiders. They don't have the money the Broncos do. They don't. So paying out coaches is much more painful for one of the poorer owners in the National Football League. Paying off Nathaniel Hackett and George Paton for Greg Penner is like lint out of your pocket. It doesn't matter. So you don't have to worry about any of the financial ramifications. And firing and moving on from GMs and head coaches doesn't cost you against the salary cap like it does for Russell Wilson. So if you lose against the Raiders at home, I already think they should have moved on. I thought they should have moved on to the bye week. But if you lose against the Raiders, okay, that's it. The end. It didn't work. And I would be very tempted to move on from George Paton as well. And you could do Darren Muji as a temporary GM, interim GM, and you can do Evero as the interim coach. I would go in a different direction. I would be more radical with it. And I've said a million times I would bring back Gary Kubiak and have Clint Kubiak call the plays. I've said a million times I would buy Omaha Productions for $1 billion and get Peyton Manning in charge of football around here. But there's other logical in-between steps that you can do. And the one coach that seems to be smart is Evero. So why not get the smartest coach in charge of this team? What they did defensively, using Draymond Jones basically as a outside linebacker defensive end, in conjunction with a lot of other things to stop Derrick Henry, was absolutely brilliant. I mean, it sucks he got burned on a flea flicker where two guys ran into each other. I mean, that's just kind of stupid bad luck. Other than that, you gave up 17 points on the road. I mean, that's great, man. You should win the vast majority of games. You only allow 17 points.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, and you're right, Ejiro Evero is the one guy who, his phase of the game is performing well, but he also seems to be getting the most of players, right? Like they're playing above what expectations were. I mean, yesterday they were without Bradley Chubb, gone, Randy Gregory, Baron Browning. Most of the guys we looked at and said, "Oh, they'll fill the void here with the Bradley Chubb trade," didn't even play. It was Jonathan Martin or whatever Martin from
Jacob Martin.
Jacob Martin that comes out there all of a sudden he's getting it got a sack, and then another one that was called back. It's it's Jonathan Cooper. It's all these guys that are stepped. Nick Bonito suddenly is playing well. Like, okay, well, there's a guy that's getting most out of guys, and he is going to be a hot head coach candidate at the end of the year. He is. He's already been to be on the Colts list. So why is he out the door?
He's gone. Like, you either use him or you shall lose him. The end.
See if he can do the job. At least, everybody says, well, what can you use the next 8 weeks for? There you go. See if Ejiro Evero can be a viable head coach. Then you don't have to go through this charade of flying all over the country and interviewing 10 different people and all the rest of that. You just got your guy there and you move on. But Nathaniel Hackett needs to be gone. He's in over.
But James, here's the problem. There's no way George Payton's going to do that. There's no way he's going to do that. He's the one that brought him in. He's going to stick with them. This has to happen from Greg Penner. And it's time now. I'm sorry, Greg. The honeymoon's over. You need to put on your big boy billionaire pants and make some tough Walmart decisions. And it starts right now with your general manager and your head coach that put your father-in-law's investment at such high risk. And I hope somebody is around to actually tell Greg Penner that. I doubt it. I hope he searches it out. But, there's not many people that are in his circle that'll tell him that. But we will.
Hey, just because you propose doesn't mean you can't be the one to file the divorce papers. Like, just go with it. Just go with it, George. You made a mistake.
Just save your own job at least.
Right. You made a poor choice.
This is where I'm at, though, when it comes to this is you're Nathaniel Hackett. You want to save your own job. You're looking and like, all right, we got to get rid of some coordinators or something. Like something has to change. And obviously, I mean, someone's got to go for Nathaniel Hackett to even be like, if I'm going to keep my job past this week.
It has to, but they had the opportunity to change. The bye week. Bye week. Yesterday was the last chance of hope, right? If they'd have come out, if they'd have looked better, if they'd have won, if they were 4-5, we're sitting here talking of, hey, they won 27-17. The wristband worked. They went a little up tempo. All of a sudden, it was Clint Kubiak calling plays. Like, all right, we would be so encouraged. But the fact that they came out of the bye and it was the exact same problems and exact same things as it was the first 8 weeks just shows me he's not willing to change and or he doesn't know how to fix it. Either one's a problem, but that's why all hope is lost. It's not that 3-6 is some sort of huge hole you can't dig out of. It's a pretty deep one, but it's not insurmountable. There's no reason to believe they can do it now. Why?
The Chicago Bears are the first team in NFL history to lose 3 straight games while scoring 30 or more points. Do you know how hard it is to lose 3 games in a row, scoring 30 or more points, especially in today's NFL? And yeah, Justin Fields made a mistake on a pick 6, bad play, no doubt about it. But his response on the next drive was to run for a 66-yard touchdown, and it wasn't his fault. His kicker missed an extra point. He couldn't get the job done, but of course you're playing from behind at that point anyways, and who knows what's going to happen in desperation. Listen, how about having some of those problems? If we have those problems, we're not talking about firing the head coach. We realize if we have those problems, it purely is talent on the defense, okay? And we're going to stick with everybody and hopefully get better. We know the Bears' issue is strictly with the talent they have. What's the problem the Broncos have? Well, it might be both. It might be your level of talent and your inability to coach. They have the same exact record, the Broncos, or I think the Bears are 3-7. But you see what I'm saying? They're both kind of in the same spot. But you want to talk about night and day differences about what to look forward to in the future. You would way rather be the Bears than the Broncos by a mile. They have cap space and draft picks, and the Broncos have neither. So you say, what changes are they going to make? I kind of agree with James, Rachel. I think it's actually too late. I think if there were changes that were going to be made that would have made an impact with Nathaniel Hackett in charge, they would have already been made. Hackett's tied himself to everybody, and I really don't see a point for Hackett to let go of anybody. I just see him going down with the entire ship.
If they make no changes, will Broncos country ever trust this new ownership group?
Well, if they don't make any changes this offseason, then no. I mean, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, if you just try and fast forward, imagine training camp next year, and it's Nathaniel Hackett, Russell Wilson. It's like, what's the story? What's the spin? How do they try to get people excited? Like, the hill will be as barren as when it was Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. Like, people aren't going to buy that. So they have till, January 9th or whatever the day is after the last game, the Monday after the last regular season game. They can earn the fan base's trust at that point. But if they don't make any changes then, good grief. I'll tell you what, though. If there's no changes announced today, right, it's not, hey, you know what, I'm going to let Justin out and call plays. Whatever, just something. Even if it's cosmetic at this point, but something. If there are no changes, there will be a raft of empty seats on Sunday, and the people who do show up are going to be there to boo. That's what they're going to do. So they better score on their opening drive and keep it rolling from there, because otherwise it is going to be 65 to 75,000 people there that are just to let their displeasure known. That is going to be raucous. Broncos country is going to let them hear it on Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday will be a referendum. December 19th against the Cardinals will be a reckoning. And that's what Greg Penner has to look forward to right now.
Oof, it's ugly. It's so ugly. Okay, well, let's get to some injuries, because this is, I think, the only saving grace for Nathaniel Hackett when it comes to his job, too, is he can fall back and say, there's so many injuries. Russell Wilson posted on his Instagram about Billy Turner and said, gonna miss you, bro. Love going to war with you. So what does that mean? We're assuming he's out for the season. And then Jerry Jeudy is getting an MRI on his ankle today. They believe it's a strain. He strained a muscle behind his ankle, so they're not sure. He was in a walking boot when he was leaving the stadium yesterday. Also, Justin Simmons believes he should be able to play against the Raiders. All right, so the Broncos have the most injuries in the NFL with 24. Do you know who the second most injury-prone team is right now?
Not Seattle.
Not Seattle. Any idea?
The Rams.
The Tennessee Titans. They've got 23. The Broncos have 24.
There you go. They're 62.
So do you look at your trainers and say something has to change at that point, or where do you put the blame for all of these injuries?
Yeah, for a raft of them. I mean, look, the two that happened yesterday, that's not on Lauren Landau and his group. Like, Billy Turner got rolled up on his knee. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. That's football. That's a football injury. Jerry Jeudy's, to some extent, I would even put in that category. Boy, talk about a bad break. It's the first offensive play of the game. He's going to be wide open for what could have been a 96-yard touchdown, and he steps on someone's foot, and then he's out for the rest of the game. But look, they had 3 guys pull hamstrings during practice last week. They came out of the bye less healthy than they went into it. I mean, it's absurd. So yes, they need to make some changes. They had these kind of problems, soft tissue problems with Rich Tootin. They didn't have him with Luke Richardson, and now they do have him with Lauren Landau. I know he's a popular guy around town, and everybody likes him, and fine, he seems like a nice guy. But Nathaniel Hackett's a nice guy too. It's not working. But I don't want to hear injuries as an excuse. I don't for 2 reasons. One, they were healthier at the beginning of the year, and they weren't playing significantly better. So it's not like they were scoring 30 points a game when they were healthy, and then now you're like, oh man, what can you do? That's not the case. And 2. Nathaniel Hackett's the guy who thought he reinvented the NFL and was going to keep everybody healthy. So this was his plan. His plan blew up in his face. You don't get to complain about it at that point if you're Nathaniel Hackett.
The only thing I'd say on this issue is what teams are the best in the NFL with avoiding soft tissue injury, and perhaps look at how they do things. It's hard to answer that question, Rachel, without doing some really deep analytical dives. Other than that, we're just kind of spitballing. So it's a area that none of us really are that expert in. I would just ask, who does the best job with it, and what do they do that's different than the Broncos? So that's how I would handle that. Whether or not it should be Lauren Landau or not, and I'm personal friends with Lauren, so I think he's fantastic. He's trained unbelievable athletes over a long period of time. I don't know what the Broncos are doing differently than teams that aren't having these problems. I would have to know that to answer the question.
If you pulled your hammy every time you tried the Imperial Challenge, would you try getting ready differently?
That's an interesting question because that's a very slow sort of movement, lengthy time. There's not a lot of sprinting going on when you ride your bike up a mountain, you climb up a mountain, and you ski down a mountain. You're not doing a lot of explosive moments at that time. So if I pull my hamstring doing the Imperial Challenge, I would just assume I am in horrible shape.
So you do something different. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'd get in better shape, I guess. But I mean, if I'm in bad shape, what the hell am I thinking about in the first place?
I tell you what you wouldn't do, go to Cabo and come back even slower.
Oh, I know. That did not look good.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm not
my gosh.
He did not look sharp. He did not look quick. He looked.
But also, you can't be sharp and you can't be quick when your offensive line is non-existent. You're getting fumbled every play.
I tortured myself. I went back and watched the game today. The problems with the offensive line were exclusively in the second half.
When the injuries started to occur.
He wasn't getting touched in the first half. I mean, Cortland Sutton dropped the ball. He also made a great catch. Yes, Jerry Jeudy, that was unlucky. He missed Greg Dulcich, okay? He just missed him. Dulcich was wide open. That's a touchdown if he puts the ball on him. There were other just bad plays. And they still insist on, like, 3rd and 3 going for, like, 20 yards down the field like they did with Cortland Sutton on the side rather than just getting a simple first down. And if you go back and watch that particular play, there was room for Russ just to tuck the ball and run, and he could have done that. I mean, he should be able to do that, but Justin Fields is just a running quarterback, so he must suck. No, Justin Fields is getting yards and first downs, and that doesn't suck. If they can't catch him, it's not his fault that he runs for 66 yards for a touchdown. That, by the way, is a good thing. Should he stop at about the 10-yard line so he can throw a pass? I mean, it's redonkulous to think about things like that. So there were a lot of ways the Broncos could have got more points, at least one more touchdown or at least one more field goal in that first half. It had nothing to do with the offensive line. When you got to the second half, I mean, that was as bad. I mean, that was miserable. I mean, that was absolutely horrific on all ends. And most of it was on the offensive line, but Russ still should take some blame on it. He's not blameless whatsoever. And you know what? He did look slow, and he did look a little thick, and he doesn't look great. And I'm not trying to body shame anybody, but I don't play in the NFL. That's not my job. That's not my responsibility. I really don't think I would have gone to Cabo and drank margaritas by the pool and told everybody I was working hard when who knows what I was having for dinner. I probably would have just chilled out. But, you know, Russ doesn't have a lot of choice in certain things to keep his relationships going, I guess, with his advertisers and his family. So I don't know what to say on this. And by the way, posting crap on Instagram about Billy Turner's health, shut up, dude. I mean, there's been nothing announced about that one way or the other. You don't need to go above and beyond to post things about missing guys when we don't know what's happening to them. Just stop it, dude. Just chill out.
The rant from DMac. First of all, I don't mind that he posts the Billy Turner because, to be honest, he probably has no idea that the media has no clue about Billy Turner yet. And he's
shut up!
Something.
Hey, Rachel, send him a text.
DMac, we know about it now. We wouldn't know for another 5 hours until Nathaniel Hackett got up there, and he's like, well, you know, there's another injury. Whatever. I'm totally fine with it. I don't care. Tell me all the problems going on.
But Rachel, just send the guy a text if you're concerned about him or you're rooting for him. You don't need to show everybody that you care so much. Just it's nice to send the guy a text. And, hey, man, I'm going to miss you, and that sucks, and I heard about it, all that. But when you put it out there, it's just so, look at me moments. I'm so sick. I get it. Russ is Russ. I understand it. But I'm sick of it at the same time.
DMac, I'm so glad that social media was not what it is today when you were growing up, because I feel like I'm just so used to it. Like, this is just the norm. That's what you do. Like, that is just what you do. So yeah, I'm glad you didn't have to grow up with social media, because I think you would have hated it even more.
But, and look, if we start looking forward to Nathaniel Hackett's replacement, we're not going to get in a time machine and go back and hire Bill Parcells from the 80s. But what would Bill Parcells in the 80s have said about this nonstop social media crap from Russell Wilson? He'd have told him to knock it off. Knock it off. So hire somebody who's going to come in and tell Russell Wilson to knock this blank off. That needs to be part of the equation.
That should have been done the day they brought Russell Wilson in, though. And instead, they just gave him a free pass to do whatever the hell they want. You can't give a kid a cookie every single day after dinner and then all of a sudden one day be like, no more cookies for you. Otherwise, you're going to see a bit of a tantrum, even if you make $245 million of the quarterback of an NFL team. Yeah. I don't care.
If I was the head coach, the only thing that Russell Wilson would get different than his teammates is a bigger paycheck. That you can't do anything about that. Great. But the special parking spot for Sierra and for all the security people and the key card to the building and the office and all the rest of that, gone, done, over. You have a locker in the locker room like everybody else. That's it. That's it. You can park.
I agree. So what is it like in the locker room after the game? Draymond Jones and Dalton Reisner spoke with the media. Take a listen.
I just got to realize sometimes that's just life. You don't win every close game, no matter how hard you try. You got to just keep pushing forward, We got a lot of football left. Doesn't mean we got to quit. We're 3-6. We're not 0-9. So there's a beauty in that.
Oh, it's always hard, man. It's always hard. I think it's harder when you lose by a closer amount. You know what I mean? I think you might be more ticked off just because you knew it was right there. It's in your grasp. And for us, it's like 5 times in a row. And it's like you keep hearing this story of, that was a good football team. Because it was. That's a good football team. It's a football team that played right there with the Chiefs in overtime. And you just get tired of hearing it because you're like, man, we're so close. We're so close. But yet we're not. We're 3-6. All I can say is I'm proud to be a Denver Bronco. I'm ready to get back to work, and that's all I'm going to do is keep putting my head down, keep going back to the drawing board, doing everything that I can to help this team win.
It's interesting. It feels like two very different emotions, but also at the same time, something is clearly going on with Draymond Jones. There's some attitude there. There's some annoyance there, and then Dalton Reisner. You almost want to just see him a little bit more fired up that they're still not able to do this.
I didn't sense any anger there.
No.
Oh, we could be 0-9. It's like Tim Tebow when they lose to the Bills saying, hey, tomorrow's still Christmas. No kidding. I got a calendar. I get it. But you just played like crap. You probably saw your season go up in smoke. How about somebody chuck a chair around? Chuck a chair across the locker room. Let's go into a Broncos locker room and see a hole in the wall.
Where's AJ Hamler?
Let's see that somebody cares, right? Like, you don't have to break things. Maybe I'm being hyperbolic, but did either one of those two sound like they really cared?
Oh, come on, James. I think they both care.
My direct deposit's hitting on Tuesday. That's what those two sounded like.
All right. I think they care. I think it's a frustrating situation. And listen, I've been listening to athletes try to, solve a This is one of the reasons why I very rarely do I bother to go talk to the athletes. I really very, very rarely go. And listen, you ask questions because you never know what they're going to say. But in general, this is the same thing I've heard from losing teams ad infinitum. And being upset and throwing tantrums doesn't help. And what you hear is a team they're resigned to the fact. They know what the deal is. They've done nothing but lose as members of the Denver Broncos. Both of those guys. It's rinse and repeat for them. They don't know what it's like to be on a Broncos team that wins. Neither one of them. So I'm not sure what to expect out of those guys. I really, frankly, don't even care. As long as I think they're playing as hard as they can and doing the best, in whatever world they're in. And I think both of them are doing the best they can do.
What do Draymond Jones and Dalton Reisner have in common?
They've never had a winning record as a member of the Denver Broncos.
They have 8 games left as Broncos. They're both pending free agents.
Well, Draymond Jones is going to get franchise tag. Draymond Jones is so talented that he's an inside pass rusher, run stopper, and when need be, they moved him to the outside, and he did very well in that department. Draymond Jones isn't going anywhere. With Dalton Reisner, I'm not sure. You could be right on Dalton Reisner. Draymond Jones, whether he likes it or not, will be a Bronco next year.
Fine, but my point is they've got a half a season left on their current contract, and to me, they both sounded like guys that it's about the payday at this point. That's what
they may both be resigned to their fates. I mean, their fates are probably going to be different, but they both may be resigned to them, not looking forward to them.
Was Dalton Reisner campaigning for hey, I love being a Denver Bronco. I want to be here, and I know I have to talk that way to look forward to next year, possibly?
No, that's just who Dalton has been since day one. He's a good dude. He's a supportive guy. He's He's the mayor. He's always been the mayor. So that's just Dalton being Dalton. And frankly, that's Draymond Jones being Draymond Jones. He's always been like that too. I don't find anything inconsistent with what those guys said.
Okay, so DMac, what I'm getting at too is you don't mind that there's no fire to them losing.
What I think there is. I think they are upset. I think those moments. Those moments come and gone once the reporters get in there, and it's one thing to say something in front of the reporters. I think they're bothered by it. I don't think they're. Listen, I've seen horrible teams that didn't care, and that was the first year in 2010, that 4-12 year. I've never seen a bunch of pathetic losers like that particular Broncos team. That was before Von Miller, when they had drafted Tebow and McDaniels had just ruined basically the entire team. Okay, I've seen bad teams. I'm sorry, Tebow was on the team. I'm sorry. And Von wasn't, right? That was 2011 season. So they're not like that. That team didn't care. That was pathetic. Those guys, that was unbelievable. That's when Eric Studesville filled in. They fired Josh. I mean, that was the most pathetic group of players I've ever seen in the NFL. This team doesn't strike me like that because the defense actually is really good.
Yeah, it's a team full of mostly nice guys. Like Justin Simmons, nice guy. Dalton Reisner, nice guy. Russell Wilson, nice guy. Cortland Sutton, nice guy.
Yeah.
Okay. You know where nice guys finish? We're seeing it. That's what we're seeing. Like who's got a little bit of nasty on this team? Who's got a little bit of not going to take it anymore? Like, I just don't see that it's there. The Aqib Talib, the Emmanuel Sanders, those type of guys that just don't put up with the nonsense. They just don't have it. But hey, Kareem Jackson was named the captain. He's given up a touchdown 2 weeks in a row.
Oh, are you blaming Kareem on the flea flicker?
No, but he got beat on the previous touchdown. It was the same play he got beat on in London by Jacksonville. Same play.
All right, I got to think about that. I'll go back and look at it. I'll take your word.
Yikes. Speaking of the Raiders looking ahead to this week, there's talks that Derek Carr could be out instead of Josh McDaniels. I want to get both of your opinions on that.
Well, he was crying after the game during his press conference.
But Josh McDaniels is a bad head coach. He hasn't had any success, and your quarterback's at least had a little bit of success.
Again, your quarterback was crying after the game. I mean, listen, I'm all for being emotional. You're in a world of hurt when your starting quarterback is crying in front of the press. So if you want to move on from Derek Carr, go ahead. The dude is obviously emotionally wrecked.
Yeah, he needs to change his scenery. Look, Derek Carr's a good quarterback, but he's not great at anything, right? He doesn't have a Josh Allen arm. He doesn't move around like Justin Fields. There's nothing special about him, right? Like Justin Herbert, you can see some of the throws even last night. Like, oh my gosh, okay, that guy's got some elite ability. Derek Carr's just a guy. And you know what? He's a guy for how the NFL was 10 years ago. He doesn't feel like where the NFL is going to me. It just doesn't.
Yeah, and by the way, get over how points are scored. Let's just look at teams that can score points. This feels like in the scene in Moneyball when they're sitting around with all those old scouts and Billy Beane is saying to his assistant, what does he have? Well, he gets on base, and that's all we care about. Let's focus on what matters. In Moneyball, you want to get on base to score runs. It was about scoring runs. In the NFL, it's scoring points. Who cares how you score the points? When I'm listen to my compadre, Michael Evans, talk about Justin Fields hasn't thrown for more than 200 yards. I'm like, who cares? The guy has literally led his team to 4 games in a row where they've scored 30 or more points. I mean, you got to be kidding me with that. We would be dying for that around here. And it doesn't matter how long the quarterback does it for. It matters what you do in the season you're at right now. That's it. It is a win-now league. It operates in 3-year cycles. That's why you got to get the quarterback first and build around him. After your 3-year cycle, you got to reinvent it all over again. So if you don't have a quarterback that you really feel confident in, you just replace him quickly and start that 3-year cycle. The Broncos just have not understood that.
I forgot to mention Kareem dropped that interception right in his hands too.
James is still stuck on Kareem. James, we obviously know where DMac stands with Justin Fields. Do you think that Justin Fields would be the same QB that we're seeing today if he had become a Bronco?
Yeah. I mean,
trick question. That's a trick question, James. Be careful.
He's got all kinds of ability, right? It's the same argument with Josh Allen. People say, oh, the Broncos wouldn't have developed him. Okay. I mean, I guess if the argument is they get somebody into their facility, they watch him, they see this special talent, and they're so stupid and stubborn that they wouldn't have built around it. Maybe. I'm just going to give people the benefit of the doubt of like, did they develop Paxton well? No. Did they develop Drew well? No. But neither one of those guys has anything special about him. They could have done a better job with them, but neither of them do. Justin Fields is one of those guys that when he steps onto the practice field, you can tell that guy's different. And I'd like to think somebody here would have been smart enough to spot that. I'm just going to go with that.
And here's why that's a trick question, Rachel. And it's a good trick question. But you're assuming that philosophically they would have done something radically different and not made coaching changes about that radical different approach. My opinion of that is if they're radically philosophically thinking different about the position, they would also have that same mind thought about the coaches who are coaching him. I will go to my grave arguing that. So if they go with Josh Allen or Justin Fields, they're not going to stick with coaches or an approach that didn't want Josh Allen or Justin Fields. So the whole like the Broncos can't develop these guys is true, but the concept that would all be the same is ridiculous. If you philosophically want to go in that direction, you're going to go all the way in that direction, not just a little bit.
Well, and because if it was an organizational problem, the Bears couldn't develop Mitch Trubisky. They've suddenly just developed Justin Fields. The Bills couldn't develop J.P. Lossman and E.J. Manuel, 2 first-round picks. They did with Josh Allen. It's about the talent. And again, at some point, I'm with you, DMac. They'd spot it, they'd realize it, and they'd say, hey, we got to blow this thing up and change our philosophy to fit that guy. Somebody would have been smart enough to do that.
And to James's point, there was more than enough natural talent with Allen and Fields. It's why they were highly considered quarterbacks in the first place and Drew Lock wasn't. There's more than enough talent to sort of hang in there while they develop. And you've got to do both. You've got to be able to win while you're developing. So that means things evolve. And it takes time for things to evolve. That's why every year you don't do it, Broncos, you're setting yourself back way more than if you take a chance on a guy and it doesn't work out. This whole like, oh, it would be so bad or where would we be if is preposterous. And it's not risky. It's the most safe, conservative approach to getting a quarterback and developing a team. You want to talk about risky? Look what George Payton did. He passed on a quarterback for a cornerback. That's not risky because you had Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. That's not risky. Then you gave up 2 first-round picks for a quarterback who's turning 34 in 2 weeks, who's 5'10" with shoes on. That's not risky. Drafting Justin Fields is riskier than all of that. What are you, bananas? That is so much riskier than everything I proposed.
Well, to end the Justin Fields rant, he does have more touchdowns, or the same amount of touchdowns, I believe, in the past 2 weeks that Russell Wilson has had all season. So, DMac, that'll give you a little bit.
Right? Really? I didn't even know that.
Think about. That is. Okay, so everyone, that's going to do it for Coffee Break. Thank you so much for hanging out with us in the comments. We love seeing them. James Marilat, DMac, myself, Rachel Veal. We'll be back 10:30 tomorrow morning. See everybody later. Peace.